Hey everybody, this is Steve Moore, owner of Run More, a brick and mortar shop in Carroll County, Maryland, and we're so excited we just moved stores to this new location that is a true brick and mortar shop and truly on Main Street. So very excited, so that's hence the new look that we have behind us. Today we're going to be reviewing the new Altra Escalante 2.0. So it's kind of weird, this is the third version of this shoe, but it's Escalante 2. So we had the original, the OG, and then we had the 1.5, and now we're up to the 2. So this has definitely been one of the most popular Ultra shoes that we've carried in here. It was really one of the first shoes that we brought in that had that more of a responsive rubber feel to it. Compared to especially some of the other models in the Ultra family, which definitely have a little bit more of a taller, squishier feel to it. This shoe was always that lower profile, faster feel to it. When I'm talking to customers that come in and are looking at a traditional shoe, and again, we're just going to use the Ultra Torn as an example to compare and contrast it to. That shoe always reminds me of like a Nerf football. And that's sort of what I feel with a lot of those shoes in that more of a neutral or high cushion shoe and a traditional cushion shoe. You step down onto it and you sort of sink in the shoe, where this shoe to me is always like a basketball. So you have your Nerf football that kind of protects you and sinks you in when you're doing your runs. And then we have our basketball shoe, which kind of springs and propels you forward. So this is one of those first shoes that we brought in, the original Escalante, that had that feeling of responsive bounce to it that people really liked. And we've seen just since we've opened the past couple of years, more and more brands are starting to add shoes in their family of catalogs that have that responsive feel to it. So the Escalante is a great shoe for somebody who's doing stuff that's maybe up to like a half marathon, maybe a little bit longer. I've had some customers that have done full marathons in it. We have one crazy guy who did the JFK 50 miler through trail and snow in the original Escalante. So you can do some longer miles, but for most of the time when we're prescribing this shoe for somebody, it's somebody who might be doing a little bit shorter than that, somebody in that 10K, maybe up to a half marathon, or something for everyday runs, or something for a little more fast-paced stuff, treadmill running. Also, because of the design, we find this shoe is great for somebody who's doing some gym stuff. Ultra is known for their zero drop platform. They were really the biggest brand that we carried for a long time that was true zero drop. So when we're talking about the drop of the shoe, we're talking about the offset from your heel to your toe. When you're kind of looking at the side profile of the shoe, you can see everything is sort of in that same line. Most of your traditional running shoes have anywhere between like an 8 to a 10, maybe even a 12 millimeter drop where your heel sits higher than your toe. So the Ultra brands are ones that bring you back down and trying to encourage you to be a little bit more of a forefoot striker. So they're trying to get away from the term zero drop there. You're going to start seeing moving forward that Ultra is trying to take that word out of it, and probably because they don't want dorks like me trying to explain what it is, what a drop is. So the term that they're using now to describe their platform is balanced cushioning. So while it still says zero drop on the shoe, it's much more subtle than it used to be, and even the boxes are going to start saying balanced cushioning. So going back to the gym representation, this is a great shoe for somebody who's looking to do some weight stuff, some side-to-side stuff. My sister is big into Zumba, and this is the shoe she takes for classes like that because it does provide some balance. Because again, if you're thinking about a traditional shoe with that high heel to toe, it does already cause you to be a little bit off on your balance, which will throw it off if you're trying to do some stuff that has some more lateral movement. So enough yapping on that. Let's talk about the shoe itself. So if you've been with this shoe for a while, you'll know that it has some certain characteristics to it. Obviously, the stack height is lower than most traditional shoes in the Ultra family, so this is still a 24 millimeter stack height. Some of the big differences, though, the weight. We've been seeing stuff getting lighter and wider, and this shoe kind of went the opposite way. This shoe got heavier, so we're about 10% heavier on this shoe than the previous generation. So we went on the men's side, we went from 7.9 up to 8.8 ounces on a men's 8. And on the women's side, we went from a 6.5 up to a 7.5 shoe. So we beefed up pretty good there, and again, and that's on a women's size 7. So the shoe got heavier, and it also feels to me that it got a little bit narrower. So if you're somebody who's really looking for that nice big toe box that we're familiar with Ultra, because they do have that foot-shaped toe box, this shoe is definitely going to feel a little bit more narrow. I'm actually standing in them right now, and I'm pretty good 11.5 in most stuff. And sometimes, as we know with Ultra, their sizing can be a little bit different depending on what you're wearing, model and year. And while the length feels pretty good to me, it definitely feels more narrow than what I'm used to in my other Escalantes. And especially if you've been with the Escalante since the original brand, the original version of this, it was almost so wide that you felt sloppy from side to side. You can see your foot really moving on it. Wearing this shoe now, one of my colleagues here noticed that they could even see my pinky toe and my big jacked up bunion on my right side sort of pushing out against the fabric on this shoe in 11.5. And you can see it is still pretty narrow through the midfoot here. So if you are somebody who really needs a true wide shoe, and you're used to that feeling in an Ultra, this is going to be a little bit narrower than you're used to. So we do have some customers that want to try Ultras, but just find them to be too wide. So if you're in that category, the changes on that actually might behoove you to be a new Ultra customer. But if you are somebody who wants that real wide, this might be more narrow than you're used to. And since Ultras only come in one width, this is going to be the only option that you're going to have. As far as the sizing go, as I mentioned, I did feel the 11.5 was pretty good for me, but we've already had some people who've been with the previous generation of shoes had to size down a little bit. So again, if you're maybe somebody who oscillates between two sizes, I'd probably tend to recommend you going down to the smaller size that you're between. Another of my other colleagues here who's always pretty much a 9 in all the Escalante 1 and the 1.5, he felt like the 9.5 was probably okay for him, but in the 1.5, the 9.5 was too big for him. So, you know, just use your best judgment, and if you are somebody who's sort of between, I would kind of caution you to go down a little bit. The other big difference on this shoe that I think people are going to be mixed reviews on is how firm it is. You know, this shoe definitely doesn't have that same sort of squishiness that the old ones did, and I'm not having that same squish as in like the Torin where you really feel like you're sinking into it, but it still was a relatively softer shoe. This shoe now is very firm. It feels a little more narrow and it feels a little bit more firm. It still has some nice bounce to it, but somebody who wants to have that squish in a small 24 millimeter platform are definitely going to be a little surprised on this. I was sort of zipping up and down our new shop here. We've got about almost 40 meters of runway here to play with, and it definitely felt like I was getting that nice bounce, but I didn't have the same softness that I had in previous generations. I think that's what people are going to notice, especially if they've been with this shoe for a while. People that are new to this shoe, I think it's going to be a great option for them. And I'm trying to think about why maybe it firmed up a little bit. And it very well could be, and this is just my hypothetical thought here, is that they were trying to differentiate themselves from some of the other stuff in their lineup, because now we've got, you know, we have the Torin, we have the Torin Plush, we've got the Paradigm, we have these shoes that are getting bigger and bigger from Ultra, and a lot of them are very soft. So now we have a shoe that's lower and really firm. So still got the responsiveness, firmer than before, a little bit narrower than we've been in previous generations, and perhaps we want to size it down about a half. So those are my thoughts on this shoe. Again, this shoe is very neutral, so if you are somebody who very much overpronates, this might not be the right shoe for you. So if you're kind of curious on that, if you have a flatter foot or somebody who maybe tends to wear down the medial, the inside of their shoe, first, this might not provide you enough, and especially considering most Ultra shoes have a little bit higher of an arch generally. So if you are somebody who needs a little bit more arch support, this shoe is going to be lower than all the other shoes in that Ultra family. And it also, having a little bit more of a shallow heel cup to it, it is kind of harder to get, like if you were going to add an orthotic or a superfeet or something in there to give yourself some additional support, it is a little bit shallower than you would find in some of the traditional Ultra shoes. So again, be wary if you're somebody who's looking to add some support to this, or somebody who does need a little bit of extra guidance, this might not be the best Ultra for you to try out. And if you're interested in purchasing this shoe, you can always go onto our website, use promo code RUNMORE, and pretty much get anything off the shop at 10% off plus free shipping. We talk a lot about shoes and good shoes versus bad shoes, and I never really like to think about that. I just like to think that there's always the right shoe for the right people, and running is the best thing in my life. It's the most important thing that I've ever done is started running. And if we can kind of help guide you a little bit to maybe help you stay healthy and happy, maybe you'll love to running as much as I do. So anyway, if you have any questions or further discussion you want to have with me, feel free to leave below in the comment section. We really do appreciate it, and it's been really fun watching our little channel here grow. So like, subscribe, all that good jazz. Thank you so much for all the nice comments and feedback we've been getting, and I hope you guys like the new shop. Thanks a lot.